Hello, and welcome to another video on navigating the Windows environment with the screen reader. Today we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that system tray area where we have our quick settings and things like that, and we're going to look more at the network and internet area. Just as a reminder, we will be using JAWS for Windows as our screen reader, but please remember that you can use any screen reader that you are familiar with or no screen reader at all, because all of the processes and commands that we will be working with today are going to be Windows based. So let's go ahead and get started. As you may recall, this system tray area that we're talking about is in the lower right-hand corner of the Windows screen, and it is sort of part of the taskbar area. Windows itself, by the way, doesn't really call it the system tray anymore, but it really used to. And it's something that I still kind of call it that because there just really isn't another way to describe it. So when your screen reader goes there, it typically will not say system tray, and that's kind of why, and that's all right. So you still might see some literature referring to it that way, including these videos, but there just isn't another good way that I've got to describe what I'm talking about visually for you. So again, we're going to take a look at the network settings area. And if you'll recall, the way to navigate down to this section is to do a Windows key plus the letter B as in Bravo. I'm going to do that now.
Windows B taskbar show hidden icons button to activate, press space bar.
And as you can hear, my focus is on the show hidden icons button. If I use my arrow keys left and right, I can navigate to the different sections of this system tray area. And I'm going to use my right arrow now to navigate to network.
OneDrive -vid backed up and sync button. Privacy microphone and use by Camtasia network WCBVI data internet access button to activate, press space bar.
Okay, and it said network. It says I'm connected to WCBVI data, and that is correct. So to open this settings area, I can press the enter key or space. Either one will work. So I'm going to press that, and I'm going to be focused on the Wi-Fi button.
Enter quick settings, Y-5 button on 1 of 12. To activate, press space bar.
Now, when I'm navigating this area, what's interesting is if I use the arrow keys, I'm just going to show you quickly. I'm going to press my right arrow.
Bluetooth button on 2 of 12. To activate, airplane mode button off. 3 energy saver button off. 5 of 12. Accessibility button 6 of 12. To activate, press space bar.
Now I'm moving between these items. I'm going to press my left arrow to go back to Wi-Fi. I just wanted to show you what would happen if I use my arrows.
Energy say airplane Bluetooth button on Y-5 button on 1 of 12. To activate, press space bar.
And there's my Wi-Fi button. Now, if I were to press enter here or space here, I would turn my Wi-Fi off. And I really don't want to do that, but I just wanted to let you know what would happen if I did. Now, there's a way to get to the Wi-Fi settings from here. And that's instead of pressing the arrow, that's by pressing a tab key. So I'm going to press tab now.
Manage Y-5 connections button 1 of 12. To activate, press space bar.
So this takes us to the Wi-Fi connections button. And if I hit enter here, it'll open some other settings related to Wi-Fi.
Enter Y-5. Y-5 button on. To activate, press space bar. List box. Network View model. Setting entry. 1 of 2. To move to an item, press the arrow keys.
So I'm focused on a list box right now, and it says that the first item in the list box, it doesn't read it correctly, and that is a JAWS thing. I've noticed that NVDA does read this correctly, so this is the network I'm connected to. If I wanted to choose a different network or find what other networks are available, remember I'm in a list box and I can press my down arrow.
WCBVI-guest 1. Open. Signal 3 out of 4 bars. 2 of 2.
And I'm at the bottom of the list, so I can't go any further. If I press my up arrow to go back to that first item in the list again.
WCBVI-data connected. Secured. Signal 4 out of 4 bars. 1 of 2.
This does read it correctly. So one strategy, if you've noticed that something is not read correctly by your screen reader, is to go down an item in a list and then come back up and then see what it says. I'm not really sure why JAWS does it this way, but it does, and that's the process that we have, at least for this version of JAWS and this version of Windows. But it's a good troubleshooting sort of thing to hear and to know that can happen. There are other areas of this Wi-Fi settings section, including the list box, and I'm going to use Tab to navigate those.
Properties link to activate, press enter.
This is the properties link, and this is the properties of the current Wi-Fi that's connected. If I were to press enter, it would open the properties of this Wi-Fi connection. I'm not going to press that. I'm going to continue to press Tab.
Disconnect button 1 of 1. To activate, press space bar.
Again, this is related to the current Wi-Fi network. If I wanted to disconnect this network, I could. I'm not going to, again, there's just not a point, so I'm going to press Tab again.
More Wi-Fi settings button 1 of 3. To activate, press space bar.
If I were to press more Wi-Fi settings, this would open some more Wi-Fi settings that I could navigate. I'm not going to, again, do that right now, but it's important to know it's here.
Test internet speed button. To activate, press space bar.
This is the test internet speed. Again, I'm going to press Tab.
Refresh network list button. To activate, press space bar.
This is a good button to know it exists, because if for some reason you have a Wi-Fi network that you want to connect to, and it doesn't show in that list, list of Wi-Fi options, you might want to refresh the network list, because that'll prompt Windows to do another search for nearby networks. And it's possible that it'll pick up the network that you want if you do that. I'm not going to, again, press this button, but I am going to press Tab.
Back button. To activate, press space bar.
This will take the user out of the Wi-Fi settings and back to the quick actions area of the system tray that we entered before.
Y-5 button on. To activate, press space bar.
And this is another way to turn your Wi-Fi off entirely.
List box. WCBVI-data connected, secured, signal 4 out of 4 bars. 1 of 2. To move to an item, press the arrow keys.
And now we're back to this list box. And we could press our Tab to circle through this again. Please remember that Shift Tab is also an option when you're in a dialog that allows for Tab. I can Shift Tab and go backwards at any point, but I usually just tab forwards to see what's available. And then once you become more familiar and you realize, hey, I pressed Tab 6 times to get to this item when I could have pressed Shift Tab twice and I got there faster. That's just something to keep in mind as a strategy for navigation. I'm going to really quick show you how I would connect to a different network. So I'm in this list here, and I'm going to use my down arrow to go to WCBVI guest.
WCBVI-guest 1, open, signal 3 out of 4 bars, 2 of 2.
So if I were not connected to a network at all, this might be how my networks would look. And I would press enter to open that network.
Enter selected.
Now that network is selected and opened, but remember, just because it's selected and opened, you are not connected. You have to proceed with the following steps in order to actually connect. So I'm going to press Tab.
Connect automatically, checkbox not checked. To check, press space bar.
So if I press space to check this, that would mean that anytime I was in range of this Wi-Fi, it would automatically connect. I don't want that because that's not my default Wi-Fi, but I could do that if I wanted.
Connect button 1 of 1. To activate, press space bar.
And this is the connect button. Once I press enter here.
Enter. More Y-5 settings button 1 of 3. To activate, press space bar. List box. WCBVI-guest 1. Open. Signal 3 out of 4 bars. Cancel button. To activate, press space bar. More Y-5 settings button. 1 of 3. To activate, press space bar. List box. Network View model. Setting entry. 1 of 2. To move to an item, press the arrow keys. Connecting.
Okay, JAWS does say all of that information. It doesn't take quite that long to actually connect, and you can definitely make JAWS be quiet at any point during that. I just like to have it continue to read. So let's make sure that we're connected by pressing a down arrow.
WCBVI-data. WCBVI-guest 1 connected. Open. Open. Signal 3 out of 4 bars. 1 of 2.
So I just pressed a down arrow and then an up arrow to find out whether I was connected by focusing on the first item in that list. And sure enough, I am connected. It's an open network. I have the option to disconnect. I'm going to come back down to my WCBVI data network here and connect to that.
WCBVI-data. Secured. Signal 4 out of 4 bars. 2 of 2.
This is 2 of 2. I'm not connected. So I want to reconnect to this network. I'm going to press enter.
Enter selected.
And I'm going to press tab.
Connect automatically. Checkbox checked. To clear checkmark, press space bar.
This network I do want to connect to automatically whenever I'm in range. So I'm going to leave that check mark checked and I'm going to press tab.
Connect button 1 of 1. To activate, press space bar.
And I'm going to press enter.
Enter. More Y-5 settings button 1 of 3. To activate, press space bar. List box. WCBVI-data. Secured. Signal 4 out of 4 bars. Cancel button. To activate, press space bar. More Y-5 settings button 1 of 3. To activate.
And I'm just going to silence JAWS and use my down arrow.
WCBVI-data connected. Secured. Secured. Signal 3 out of 4 bars. 1 of 2.
So I just pressed my down arrow and up arrow to make sure that I was connected to this network, which I am. And now that I'm connected to the correct network, I can go ahead and press escape.
Escape. Properties link. To activate, press enter. Taskbar. Network WCBVI-data internet access button. To activate, press space bar.
And remember, my focus will remain in the status bar until I move the system focus somewhere else. I'm going to do that by pressing Windows M.
Windows M. Program Manager. Desktop.
I'm just going to silence my screen reader. So that pretty much went through all of that for you. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for joining us and have a great day.